Hello, welcome to another edition of Talking Sports and Fitness with Zeke. I'm Zeke, sometimes known as Mike Zielinski. My guest today is Marshall Kauffman, who is, welcome Marshall.
Thank you, thank you.
Marshall's a longtime boxing trainer, King's Gym, which stands for Kids in Need of Guidance. The whole purpose of this in the beginning was to keep the kids out of trouble and give them some confidence and some self-esteem. But you have branched out in so many ways. You are a big-time promoter now, King's Promotion.
Correct.
You do a lot of fights on Showtime, ESPN, Fox Sports 1.
Correct.
And you've trained a lot of world-class fighters, including your son Travis, and you led Kermit Citron, another local fighter, to a title shot in the welterweight division. But more on that in our second episode. I want to talk to you about Muhammad Ali. I was very...
I get chills when you mention his name.
I was very, very fortunate as a young sports writer. I got to cover him at Deer Lake. Met him many times, actually playfully sparred with him one time, which was a treat. But I just loved Ali. And I know Travis trained at Deer Lake for a couple of years. Now, this is way past Ali.
Correct.
But as a boxing guy, what's your thoughts on Ali? Because my impression of him was, especially in the beginning, he did everything wrong, but he made it right because he had extraordinary physical gifts. Foot speed, hand speed, reflexes, and he could have been a limbo dancer. He was so limber.
Yeah.
So what's your take on Ali?
As far as his technique for boxing, there was a lot of flaws.
Yeah.
I mean, his chin wasn't tucked behind his shoulder, hands didn't stay up. He fought with his hands down. But he got away with so much of it because he was so fast in the heavyweight division, because he had such great reflexes, because his hand-eye coordination was so well that he was able to get away with a lot of that. And then as you've seen him get older, as he got older, is when things started to change, when he got hit more, and things took place of things changed a lot as he got older. But he was, by far, in my opinion, the greatest fighter of all time. And not so much because of what he did in the ring, but more so because of what he did out of the ring.
Yeah, and we're going to get to that in a couple minutes. But what always impressed me about Ali was, because you mentioned later in his career, but the epic fights with Norton and Frazier and Foreman, he was not the Ali pre-exile. I'm not sure he ever had a peak because he missed from 25 to almost 29. And if you look at the Cleveland Williams fights, the Ernie Terrell, I mean, his combination of speed and like we were talking earlier, he had a lot of pop because he was so fast. When he came back, he didn't quite have that hand speed.
Right.
And I think the other unfortunate thing about Ali was the Foreman fight. I mean, he discovered that rope-a-dope out of sheer necessity, but then he did it all the time. I mean, he did that in training at Deer Lake for a lot of those fights. He was absorbing a lot of shots.
It's easy.
Yeah.
You lay up against the ropes. You don't have to move. It's not as much wear and tear on your legs. And he was covering up a lot, so it was easy. The biggest shots that you had to worry about were the body shots, and he took them well. And one thing about Ali was that one thing that he had over probably just about anybody he ever fought in his era was mentally. Mentally, he was stronger than anybody.
Yeah.
And I remember reading about where Ali would go out and run 7 miles in his boots and then go straight to the gym and work out. And that to me was impressive alone.
Yeah, the thing with Ali was that, Norman Mailer once wrote that, and he was a big fight guy, and he loved Ali. All writers did, because he gave us so much to write about. Of course. George Plimpton. But Norman Mailer once wrote that boxing is a dialogue between bodies. And I thought Ali was the master of that conversation. And you talked about he did everything wrong, but the two things about him I thought was, one, he was very creative. Like Angelo Dundee, his long-time trainer, said, he doesn't take direction. So if he does something I like, I'll just encourage him, hey, do it indirectly.
Angelo was good at that.
He was very good at that. But I think the two things besides Ali's tremendous physicality was his will and his ego. He actually believed, I think, that he was the greatest. It wasn't just, and all fighters have confidence, but he just was unbelievable.
No, he believed it from day one. He believed it before he was great,
Yeah.
And so That's one thing that he did do, and it's just he was an amazing individual. He was an amazing athlete, and just to go through with what he went through by standing up for what he believed in and not going to the war, and I think that showed a lot about who he was, and I think that pretty much more than anything made a name for who he was more than what it was winning the heavyweight championship of the world. And as you know, as we get older, we get slower.
Yeah.
Okay. But one thing that he did do, he became smarter. Okay, and he got smarter in that ring, and he knew how to use his assets with his mind more than his body.
The thing about Ali was his stance against the war for religious reasons. Turned out he was on the right side of history, obviously. Mm-hmm. And because he was such a pariah, he was hated by so many people and vilified. To see that he made that transition, and you know, the black Muslims were a lot more militant than the regular Muslims, which he became. But to see that transformation of Ali from so many people hated him, and he had to go out of the country to get some fights because he couldn't get one here. And now became beloved in his last 20, 30 years.
Yes, without a doubt.
Because he sacrificed money and career for principle.
Mm-hmm. And it's funny you say that, because I still try to tell young athletes that today. Stop chasing the money. You know, the money will come when you do everything else right, and it shows with Ali. I mean, when Ali, I'm sure he's worth millions of dollars when he passed away, being where he was, because they sold the rights of his name off. I think they got $50 million for that when he sold the rights of his name off.
The other thing that he did, apparently his foundations, they raised over $100 million for Parkinson research. One thing we should talk about Ali was his charisma. Boy, he had charisma, and he was so loquacious.
Yeah, I can't even think of a fighter today that had the charisma that he had.
There were some guys who tried to capture, you know, Sugar Ray Leonard actually, and Leonard fought a little bit like Ali too, but there was only one Ali.
He was flamboyant and whatnot, but there was only one Ali.
Yeah.
There was one Ali that can go in there and talk the talk and walk the walk.
You know, when you were up there with Travis in 2008 and 9, I guess.
Yes.
What's left of the camp? I heard the Rocks are still there, and
I was also up there in 2004 with Centron as well.
Okay.
So
was that when George Dillman had? I think
George Dillman still has it. Okay. He still has it, and his son runs it.
Yeah.
But George still has it. But
George, by the way, was a longtime karate guy.
Yes.
And he said he trained with Ali. He said that a lot. I don't know how much he actually trained with Ali. But
I've seen a lot of pictures with it, but who knows, you know? But George is a character. But when we went up in 2004 with Centron, we spent 4 weeks up there, and it took a lot of getting used to for a lot of the athletes, even with Kermit, and they didn't like it because there was no cable, there was no TV. So what they did, now we're in the ages of video games, so they took video games up and played video games a lot. But so it takes a lot of getting used to for today's athletes to go to a place like that. My son Travis loved it. He loved being up there without the TV. He didn't care about that, not having Wi-Fi, and
for a young kid nowadays, man, that's something.
Yeah. So, and we're talking, what were we talking? 7 years ago. So he was only 23 years old at the time, and so he loved it. He really did.
I think Deer Lake had a lot to do with sustaining Ali's career, because he used to train down at the Fifth Street Gym in Miami, Angelo's place. And he was just distracted. But the funny thing is, he came to the mountain, Deer Lake, and he used to call it Muhammad's Mountain. There was so many people there. It was unbelievable. And he used to feed off the crowd after workouts every time.
I've seen tons of pictures. I even seen an old video, a dear friend of mine who introduced me to the Ali camp, because I never went up as a kid, Jeff Julian, who took some photos. Jeff Julian. Jeff Julian is a photographer that followed Ali around for years. And Jeff Julian, as a matter of fact, his photo was in the newspaper.
And they did an article on it.
And Jeff Julian was the only photographer that was allowed to shoot Angelo Dundee's viewing his funeral as well, because of his relationship with Angelo Dundee, his relationship with Ali. And he was actually allowed access to Ali's house. But he showed me an old video clip of what it was like, and just I was impressed so much by Ali and how he handled himself with the people and how he, that's what pumped him up. And I'll give you a real quick scenario. I know we don't have much time, but a late and great Reading fighter, Steve Little, was the same way.
Well, yeah.
Steve lived for the people, and I remember when Steve was going through chemotherapy and getting his cancer treatments, and they had the Reading Parade going down Penn Street, and here we turned off, we parked around the corner at 4th and that was 4th and Franklin. Steve gets, as soon as we're done and there's no one around, he just breaks down physically. While we were going down Penn Street, he was alive. He was had the energy that a young individual would. As soon as we got around, when nobody was around, physically he just fell apart.
Yeah.
And so that's what I think Ali was like as well. And I think Steve fed off of Ali. Ali was one of his favorite fighters as well. You know?
Well, anyway, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on Muhammad Ali. He was the greatest of all time. For now, this is Zeke saying goodbye.
These community stories are made possible in part by BCTV, Susie Ray Design, Queen City Family Restaurant, Lamar Advertising, Heidelberg Family Restaurant, Reading Air, Lions and Hole, Peanut Bar, and Kutztown University.